when I was re-listening to it this week, I put a note that around the 3-minute 20-second point, I was like, this is the right time to end the song, because there's like a very natural sort of wind down, and then it starts again. As I was writing that, though, I was like, no, actually, 2 seconds in would have been the perfect time to end this song.
Hello, and welcome everyone to another week of 1001 Album Complaints. This is the podcast where lifelong friends, musicians, and music critics go through albums from Robert Dimery's list of 1001 albums you must hear before you die, give our in-depth critiques. Hopefully we have a lot of fun, give you a little bit of a reason to like, love, hate, despise the album that we're going through. This week, we will be listening to an album by the artist Kid Rock, Devil Without a Cause. If you're as excited as I am,
is artist really the right word here?
I think that we're gonna. The audience won't be able to see it, but we're gonna have lots of air quotes around stuff that we say, like song and artist and rap line. But yeah, if you're as excited as we are about this album, we encourage you to, give us a review. Give us 5 stars. That'd be great. Write a little review. Say how much you like us, how much you hate us. You can subscribe. The most important thing for us is if you could share this with a friend. We want to get the message out that there are some great works of art out there. Well, let's show our hands yet. But basically that we have some complaints.
That's now the mission statement for this podcast.
But can it be terrible but also a must hear? I think that's one of the things we got to reckon with here, because we did recently do a podcast where we talked about hate listening and how important it was to know what you don't like and to really experience the terribleness of some of these tracks. So I'm wrestling with it a little bit myself.
I had not considered that, and I'll keep that in mind while we talk.
Yeah. Oh, I think I hear some vote shifting.
Well, it's like asking if you've never eaten a turd. Like, it's going to be bad, but like, what's life without having eaten a turd?
Yes, Alan, that was exactly what I was thinking. Oh, right. So we're going to jump in and give you guys a little background on the artist, a little bit of an in-depth breakdown of specific tracks. But before we do that, we're going to give you a little bit of a flavor of what we've been suffering through all week. We're going to start with the track that was a massive hit, the opening song off of 1998's Devil Without a Cause. The artist, deep dive on the tracks. I'm going to throw this around the horn. We're going to get a couple of tweet-length impressions of the album. And this is going first to Alan. Alan, describe your week to me in a tweet-length review.
Let me just say that I was always under the impression that Larry the Cable Guy had perfected the fake redneck grift, but it turns out he was just an underachiever.
I think Larry the Cable Guy chronologically comes after Kid Rock. I bet you he was in some bar in Florida and heard this, because this is definitely the music that's played in the bar in Florida, and was like, wait a second, I think I can make a career out of this.
Well, he's still got some work to do if he wants to, take the number 1 spot.
Well, on that topic, I found myself, when I was writing comments for this, a lot of them fit easily into the Jeff Foxworthy "you might be a redneck if" framework. And so does that make him a brilliant comedian who's ahead of his time, or what is that? Where does that put him?
I always found Jeff Foxworthy a little charming. He had some funny jokes.
Hey, if you can get people to consume your art in some way, you're doing something right. I'll just put that out there right now, whether it's good or not.
I don't know, man. Like, this record has like 1 billion listens, and
yeah, Phil, let's get your tweet-length review of this album.
My tweet-length review would be something like, don't listen to Kid Rock's Devil Without a Cause. Don't listen to Kid Rock's grit sandwiches for breakfast. I'm actually currently having questions about finishing the podcast and giving Kid Rock any more of my time in any capacity.
Well, we have been trying to keep these a lot shorter, so this might be just call it now.
Rob, let's hear your tweet and length review of this album.
I wrote a short one and a long one. The short one is, if a soul patch came to life and made an album. And the longer one is, this is watered down, lowest common denominator drivel for angsty rural teenagers and beer-soaked 37-year-old absentee fathers who spend their weekends lighting fireworks near whatever body of water happens to be the closest to where they were born.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. You had me at beer swilling absentee fathers.
I was like, that doesn't sound bad, if I'm being honest.
Oh, it's B37 again.
Well, Rob, I also have written 2 tweet length reviews for it. I got a short one and a long one. I'll give you the short one first. Let me get myself warmed up for this. This is my short one. This album sucks, cock. And my slightly longer one is, this album is ba with a ba to bang shitty.
Wait, do you have to pay Sugar Hill Gang for that little?
Yeah, right. Well, I think we're going to come to the conclusion while we go through some of the deep dives in this track that most of Kid Rock's artistry is, I'm just going to take a better song that was already written and just put my shit lyrics over it and see if a bunch of idiots will buy it and make me millions of dollars.
I want to clarify right off the bat that it's certainly fashionable to not like Kid Rock, but we're not just shitting. I'd have a lot of clear ideas of why this is terrible. So, and I think everyone here on the call does. So I'm excited to get into the details and look beneath the superficial terribleness.
Yes. Let's just dive right in to Robert James Ritchie, born January 17th, 1971, in Romeo, Michigan, which you will notice is about 40 miles outside of Detroit. He reps Detroit as like, I'm Detroit born and raised. Yeah, that'd be like growing up in Thousand Oaks, California, and being like, I'm straight out of Compton, motherfucker. It's like, no, you're not. You're like a good, a decent hour drive outside of Detroit.
So presumably Romeo is a trailer park, low-income area that's been hit hard by numerous economic recessions?
Romeo, in and of itself, has about like somewhere in like a $57,000 average household income demographic going on, which is not great, but it's great for Michigan because Michigan's a little economically depressed. But regardless of how well Romeo, Michigan in general was doing, Robert James Ritchie was the son of a man who owned a very successful car dealership, Ritchie Ford. He grew up in a 5,000 square foot house on 6 acres with multiple horses. So, some of the super
He's a cowboy,
redneck.
dude.
He's a cowboy.
Oh, dude, this is all
Of
coming together
course.
now. Actually,
Yeah. I like maybe Ba Wada Ba was the name of his favorite horse growing up or something. I don't know. But yeah, the disingenuousness just from moment one just seeps through. Now, I will say this for Kid Rock. He has, at various points in his lyrics, said stuff to the effect of like, I didn't want to sell cars because my dad was a dick. Acknowledging the fact that he had a path to success that was not music related. But that is also in and of itself a disingenuous statement, because that would be like, my wife sells clinical software. That would be like saying that like, oh, my wife sells clinical software when she owns a clinical software company. That is a very different thing than saying like, oh, my dad sold cars. Like, selling cars is a solid middle-class job. My dad owns a car dealership.
right. Your dad's not getting screamed at by Alec Baldwin and fucking Glengarry Glen Ross.
Yes,
Exactly.
Yes. It's not a Gil from The Simpsons type situation.
Absolutely not. It's the guy who's always going to fire old Gil. So very early on in his life, though, he did want to become a rapper, and he actually was signed to Jive Records at the tender age of 17. It will be noted that he was signed in 1988, which was before Vanilla Ice had his release of To the Extreme in 1990. So he was kind of on the cutting edge of that white boy hip-hop scene. and actually had a little bit of success with his Grit Sandwiches for Breakfast album. Became somewhat of a local celebrity, sold 100,000 copies of it. Very successful for a Detroit-born rapper. And this actually, he parlayed this into touring with Ice Cube, Too Short, and D-Nice, amongst others, across the country in like the late 80s, early 90s.
So, Tom, I had the unfortunate happening of thinking that we were listening to Grit Sandwiches for Breakfast this week. I attempted to listen to Grit Sandwiches for Breakfast 3 times this week and started it at various points. Probably got through it about 2 times in total. It is terrible, right? Like, imagine if there was a 4th Beastie Boy who got like kicked out, like straight out of the first audition, and then he made records like by himself and was like always showing the Beastie Boys, and they were like, get lost, man. That's basically what this record is like.
I mean, I think that you're giving him a lot of credit by saying the Beastie Boys. Alan, you sent around that picture of him from back in the day with the big Kid and Play hair going on. And I thought of it as like that sort of like Kid and Play, like, oh, hello, I hope you like my rap song type of rapping. It's terrible. It's just bullshit.
It's like for a 16-year-old and by a 16-year-old.
But even, I'm glad you mentioned the Beastie Boys because, and with the timeline that Tom just gave, that does give it some helpful context that, from what I know about hip-hop history, I'm not an expert, is that was, License to Ill came out in 1986. The Beastie Boys were, if not the first, then one of the very first of that kind of white boy hip-hop genre, and they were having success, and probably record companies were seeking out other options like that. Maybe that's where his original record deal came from. And when I was listening to this, I did think occasionally in my mind of that first Beastie Boys record, License to Ill, which is excellent, by the way, in comparison to this. But this felt like it's at least 10 years on from that, maybe more like 12 years on. I can't remember when this one came out exactly. And there's something about the Beastie Boys. I mean, there are many reasons the Beastie Boys are better.
This came out like 98, by the way, dude.
Yeah, this is 98.
Okay, so like 12 years later, the rapping style hasn't advanced, but there's something about it what really rankled me, and maybe it's the context of Kid Rock's whole celebrity persona up until today is a factor here, that you can just sort of tell the Beastie Boys didn't really mean it. They thought it was funny. It was fun in games. They were 16 and they were being 16-year-olds, and then they kind of grew out of that. Kid Rock is like a full-grown man, and he thinks this is good.
Yeah, there's also...
We don't know that he thinks it's good. We know that he thinks it can be successful, which it definitely was.
I think we'll dive in a little bit to what he was kind of going for in this album, but I want to bring it back to the Beastie Boys comment for a second. There is a playfulness, a non-seriousness, and almost like a vulnerability, like a self-deprecation to the Beastie Boys that is not existent on this album at all. Yes. In any way, shape, or form. This is all like, I am the biggest swinging dick in the trailer park, and I get all the ladies, I do all the drugs, I have all the money, and it just gets exhausting. It really does. It's such just festival of bravado that is hollow at its core. Well, he was dropped by Jive Records after Grit Sandwiches for Breakfast, essentially because of unfavorable comparisons to Vanilla Ice, which if you as a rapper are being unfavorably compared to Vanilla Ice, that is not a great sign for your ability.
Meanwhile, Snow is shedding a single tear somewhere in Canada.
Yeah, he's out there just licky boom boom down.
The thing that I think should be noted from that first record, that first Jive record, who later dropped him, is there is track 8, Pimp of the Nation, which, becomes I guess to some degree, you see that this sort of, this pimp persona, I guess, was always there, right? It's already manifested in song 18, 19 years early.
It's funny that you mentioned that, because after he put out Grit Sandwiches for Breakfast, he had 2 more albums, a couple of EPs. He put out the Polyfuse Method and Early Morning Stone Pimp as 2 of his albums. And this is apparently where he really refined and settled on what is, and this is a direct quote, the trailer park pimp daddy persona that he was going for. That is his stated goal, was to be the trailer park pimp daddy. And it is important to mention that this is a put on. This is a persona. This is not who he really is. He wanted to be a trailer park pimp daddy.
Just for fun, I think we should play Pimp of the Nation off the first record.
How much do we want to subject our listeners to here?
Well, that way you could really see the progression.
Yeah,
the artistic
this is going to be important.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's just give
production values that one could achieve with basically a fucking iPhone these days. It's pretty terrible, and the absolute lack of a compelling flow, rhythmically, lyrically, cadence-wise, is there and persistent throughout. As you said, Rob, this is like Arrested Development. It's like he got successful at 17 and then was like, I don't have to get any better. I just have to figure out how I can shoehorn this into whatever the sound of the day is. So this album came out in 1998. It came out on August 18th of 1998. Another interesting little tidbit here. What also came out in 1998, just a little bit after, is Vanilla Ice did a nu metal album as well that came out in 1998. I think it came out in like November 1998. Just as listeners, do yourself a favor. Go listen to the Vanilla Ice.
Do you think that's on the Robert Dimery list? Do you think we'll maybe get to do that one of these days?
I mean, I honestly...
this sets the bar pretty low, guys.
Can we define nu metal briefly?
Yes. So, nu metal was a genre that is credited with being sparked by the bands Korn and the Deftones. And the hallmarks of nu metal, there's one bad hallmark and one, I think, good hallmark of nu metal. The good hallmark got instantaneously perverted and, stripped out of the genre very shortly thereafter. But basically, they took complex, time-changing, very intricate riff-focused metal, and they stripped it out, and they made it very simple, very easy to play, much more repetitive. That, as far as the nu metal sound, that is the definition of the nu metal sound. You go from bands that were doing thrash kind of fast riffs and time signature changes and really complex drums to... what's that Korn song Blind, which was one of the first big nu metal songs, and it's just like it's easy, like a child could play it on an instrument. That was one of the sound hallmarks of nu metal. The lyrical content hallmark of nu metal at the beginning that was absent from previous metal. A lot of previous metal had been about bravado, or let's say not satanically inspired stuff, but just more dark subject matter, was actually, if you listen to that first Korn album, there's a lot of vulnerability on it and a lot of talking about real world experiences and dealing with trauma and kind of the experience that one would have growing up as a metalhead and getting picked on in high school was sort of repeated throughout a lot of these songs. Like, listeners, this is going to come up once or twice on this podcast, and I feel like the only way to approach it is to just say it. Like, there's a Korn song on that first album called Faggot. It's spelled Faget, but it's literally about the lead singer being bullied in high school for being gay and like being like people calling him a queer, calling him a faggot and stuff like that. And it's a very raw, very emotional song. There's a song about sexual abuse on that song, which literally ends with a guy like sobbing on the microphone. It's all very emotional. And the fact that from 1994, when that first Korn album came out, to 1998, nu metal becoming dominated by the kind of guys that would kick kids' asses in high school and call them faggots and shove them into lockers. Like, how the hell did that transition happen so fast? I think one of the things was that apparently after Korn became a sort of hit on the local scene, apparently it was one of those events where just everybody was throwing money at the next nu metal band. So all of these bands that did not have that sound just started to make music like that, because like that's how you get a record contract. That's how you get on the Ozfest tour. That's how you make a ton of money. And yeah, it was a pretty quick perversion of it in kind of a disgusting way. Not that I was a fan. I'm not a Korn fan. by any stretch of the imagination. But
doesn't sound like you know anything about Korn at all.
listen, I would listen to every single Korn song. I happen to do a lot of research for this podcast, all right? I read a lot of articles.
How dare you come prepared, though.
I would listen to the entire
You were ready
Korn
for
discography.
the Korn sidebar, man. That's good work by you.
Well, I'm just trying to give some context on nu metal and what the genesis was behind some of the songs on this album, because I think that one of the things we're going to notice this album is that this album is a scattershot of a bunch of different. He's throwing spaghetti at the wall and seeing what's going to stick on this, and it's very much. We talked about that with almost like the Alanis Morissette album, where it was, I'm going to do the super grungy woman song, I'm going to do the song for the soccer moms in the minivan, I'm going to do the ballad song, and we're just going to see what happens, and maybe this is going to get me something. And then it just so happens that this album sold so many fucking copies. It is utterly disgusting. It sold 14 million copies certified by the RIAA. This is the 66th best-selling album of all time. This album cracks the top 100 selling albums of all time. If this does not make you lose hope for humanity.
Do you have the list right in front of you? Like, just out of curiosity, can we see, like, if you...
I want to throw up. It's disgusting.
Yes.
What have we done? What have we done, America?
In all honesty, yes. This is one of those,
sorry.
like, how are you, how are we just, like, dumping this on the world? This is
It's not...
Well, we're not just dumping it on the world either. They want it. The world wants it somehow.
So I'm gonna throw out some albums that are in the same ballpark as this album, which is like, Houses of the Holy is below this album,
Bullshit.
just below this album. Notorious B.I.G.'s Life After Death, also below this album. Sgt. Pepper's, also below this album.
Well, that makes sense. Would you say that this is the Sgt. Pepper's of nu metal, Tom?
No, I guess I'd have to give that to Chocolate Starfish and the hot dog flavored water. And for anyone out there that thinks I'm making that up, that is a legitimate album by Limp Bizkit that is also on Robert Dimery's fucking list of 1001 albums you must hear before you die.
Listen, listeners maybe have had enough of us impugning the list, but have we discussed? I mean, is the list? Do we have any clue if the list is about good material? Is it about understanding the artistry of recorded music, or is it about understanding the ridiculous absurdity of the recording industry?
I think it could be the latter, because a lot of the albums on here have, I wouldn't say cultural significance, but like of the nu metal genre, or whatever the hell you want to call this bastardization of, hip hop, rock, fusion, to have sold 14 million copies. I think it's maybe a commentary that this is different and it sort of owns its category, whether you like the category or not. Like, I kind of wonder if that's what he's getting at.
I disagree that it's not different, though. I agree that it sold a lot, and that means something. But I refuse to admit it's because it's different or unique in any way, shape, or form. No. I think, in fact, it's been distilled down into a digestible slurry for idiots.
I'm not saying the music is different. I'm saying that it probably occupies a spot in the list of most albums sold that are not occupied by other,
How does this happen?
people who did this kind of music. Like, unless Limp Bizkit is in that general tier, or, it's definitely not saying that this is some sort of like unique music.
So one thing that Phil, I'm gonna touch on your "how does this happen" comment. I think that this is a product of the 90s in a very particular way. This might have been, and maybe this is I'm not going to blame this on this album, but I think that like 1997 to 2001 might have been the peak of America, and we have just been on a decline since then. I think this was the Russia's no longer in existence as a global threat, or the undisputed dominant force in the world. China's ascendancy has not happened yet. This is America getting fat, lazy, and fucking dumb. And this was an album for that exact moment.
And somehow angry at the same time, which is...
Yes, and somehow angry. Yeah.
Here are my notes on the first track, Ball with a Ball. I have a note here that the song and possibly the record peaks around 35 seconds. Right, there's this like build up with the
That's
synthesizer.
still in the like intro soundscape.
Yeah. The song drops at 1:15. So yeah, I think the song actually peaks at 35 seconds.
Well, let's actually get into the deep dive on Ba With a Ba. We're gonna play you a little bit more of Ba With a Ba. I can't believe I have to say this so many goddamn times, but we're gonna get right into a deep dive on Ba With a Ba. So without any further ado, what the hell?
But I had this moment of feeling like, wow, maybe it's actually good. Like maybe it has terrible content, and I really dislike the person behind it and all this stuff. But maybe it rocks. Maybe
what if I
like
maybe
this is my own hangups that is preventing me from liking this masterpiece. Not the case.
That kick in, as Phil mentioned, the kick in falls totally flat, say compared to Rage Against the Machine from 6 years earlier. Like it does nothing that those songs do.
Well, and speaking of Rage Against the Machine, I actually had a note that he tries to do that like Zach De La Rocha scream at one point. Well, probably many points, but in this song in particular. And it's just so weak, and you know it's supposed to feel like it's got this release and this angry primal scream, and it just it falls super flat.
It was so much more badass in my memory than it was when I just listened to it.
It lacks bottom. It's really distorted, but it doesn't have a lot of bottom to it. And I think a big part of that is that you can tell that this is just a super digital recording. It has none of the warmth and the depth that you get from a well-constructed 2-inch tape recording. It feels obscenely 90s and obscenely digital.
This is the only time I'm going to say this, but I'd be really if an actual Kid Rock fan happens to still be listening, I'd actually love to hear from them, because what I want you to do is objectively play this song and then play Killing in the Name Of, and wait for the respective drop-ins of the songs, and tell me if you can't understand the difference in quality. I'm really curious.
Yeah, I mean, and from every angle, from the writing angle, subject matter, the recording, the production, the mixing, the performance in general. I mean, this is like, it's such a terribly dumb and easy riff.
And this is the thing that irks me so much about this whole crossover rock hip hop thing. And not to say that hasn't been done well at points. Obviously, like Rage is a good example. But at some point in the song, there's like this really weak, like, I don't know if it's during the chorus, but there's just like DJ scratching. And then it drops out and does this really lame, like, Frankenstein ripoff riff. It's just the things that it's even trying to do. It's making decisions that's like, hey, let's have this part that makes it different. And those parts are just so weak in comparison to what they could be.
I just want to throw this out there for you guys. Take a guess at where this song was mixed.
Abbey Road.
Abbey fucking Road!
Oh, I know it from his answering machine message later.
I was like,
yeah,
yes,
it's pretty ridiculous. Yeah,
you said something a second ago, Tom. I actually started looking at the stuff that was being worked on, sort of like adjacent to this. The big one is Kid A. Would have been, being worked on at Abbey Road around the time this is being mixed there.
What? How was that decision
the
made?
Bends going between those sessions. That's a little too close to a Radiohead pun. Okay. What I wanted to say was, but to Alan's point about what is wrong with this song, you're right, it has no bottom and no taste is applied. But one of the things I noticed, and this is how dedicated I am, listeners, I sat with my guitar and I played through the song, and I was able to get like every single
2.5 minutes, 2.5 seconds. Yeah.
Every 2.5 seconds, but I needed to listen to all of it to make sure that it is exactly one melodic note and one fucking chord.
Yeah.
The entire
F
time.
sharp
And
minor.
even when the guitar, and even when the guitar does yes, but instead of in with the aforementioned Tom Morello F sharp minor thing, one of the whole big premises of using that key is that you can drop down to the E to get more riffage. Doesn't do that throughout the entire time. or the entire chorus melody. Just think about that for a second. The entire chorus melody is one single note. And even when they do riffs on the guitar, they stray. I think there might only be 2 actual guitar notes in the song.
Oh, so it's the octave probably. Dun, 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 dun.
That's a minor third. That's
Okay,
the only
okay.
other note I'm referring to.
The funny thing is, Rob, if you were to ask me to sit down and play Ba Wada Ba, I absolutely would have been like, well, it's got to be F sharp. It's got to start on F sharp. You know, if I'm thinking of the easiest, but I'd be waiting for that, that like pull up, but that's never gonna come. It's never gonna come. Drop down to the 7.
Rob,
Pretty silly.
It's like it happens, I think, in the second chorus, if depending on how you want to count them, and again after the breakdown, there is some kind of other note. It's like hard panned right. There's like something. I even made note of it because I was like, that sounds like something.
As opposed to the rest of it, which sounds like nothing. So we're a couple of times during this podcast, I'm going to sprinkle in a couple of facts, and I've categorized them into 2 different camps. There is the Kid Rock go fuck yourself fact, and there's the Kid Rock you're actually kind of all right fact. And we're going to start off with a much shorter list of Kid Rock you're actually kind of all right facts, in that he has a black female drummer as his drummer, which in a industry, especially the metal genre, that is dominated by white men, good on you. That's actually kind of all right. Good for you. I'm glad that you have given this woman a very, I'm sure super successful career. Her name is Stephanie Eulenberg. She was part of the Twisted Brown Trucker Band, which was his backup band. So, good on him for that. We're going to throw that into the category of Kid Rock. You're actually kind of all right facts. Just to counterbalance that, I'm going to throw in a Kid Rock go fuck yourself fact really quickly. He is responsible for inflicting the artist Uncle Kracker upon the world.
Yep.
If you remember Uncle Kracker from the back in the day, follow me and I won't. Yeah, that guy.
There's one of the songs where he references a someone named Cracker, and I was actually wondering if that's who it was. Oh man, that makes it so much worse.
He was his DJ, doing all that super complex scratching that is required on these.
It's
these
terrible.
Tracks. There is, this song is just a bunch of disconnected. Rob, I remember you saying that the Rage Against the Machine album was an exercise in anthemic sounding lines shouted over hard rock. This is an exercise in like approaching anthemic lines shouted over hard rock, but it's just super terrible, and they're so shitty, and the music is so shitty. I don't understand how this launched his goddamn successful career.
Well, have we talked about yet the obviously, and if we did talk about this, I'm losing my memory, but just the blatant theft of the Sugar Hill Gang?
Oh, yeah.
Well, we didn't dive into that yet. His approach to songwriting, let's call it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have any grandiose thesis of that other than, that's the whole basis of your song is this little fucking shimmy thing that you do, and it's 3/4 of it are just stolen from an 80s rap song.
The hippie to the hippie, the hip hip, the hopper, you don't stop, rock it to the bang, bang the boogie, say up, jump the boogie to the rhythm of the boogie beat.
Well, that actually leads me into Kid Rock Go Fuck Yourself fact number 2. Are you guys aware, though, have you listened to the song American Badass by Kid Rock?
Thankfully, I've not.
I hope not.
Well, you actually have, because it's literally Metallica's Sad But True, with him doing shitty rap over it. And I'm not talking about it's a little snippet sample of Sad But True. It's just Sad But True, minus the chorus, with Kid Rock doing shit rap over it, talking about how he's the American badass.
Man, I wish I hadn't listened to that.
It's really terrible. It's really, really, really bad.
I've heard that before. That really sucks.
It really sucks. It's remarkably bad. But again, I think that the thing that I found the most galling about this album is that it was really, again, that exercise in I just want to have a hit, and whatever that hit comes from, I am going to go down that road. And here's the thing that I find to be interesting. He did not even have confidence in the nu metal sound or in the country rock sound, which we're going to get to soon, because Ba Wit Da Ba was the 4th single released off of this album. One would think that this was like his big breakout hit. You'd think that would have been the first song released. No, this was the 4th single released off of that album.
That's a good point. It's a real genre pastiche on this one. But we keep saying it's funny because it's throughout the lyrics of the entire album that he keeps talking about how he needs a hit. He needs just one song.
Yeah.
The record company keeps telling him to punch up the hook. And I thought that is kind of a window into what's actually going on and his insane opportunism.
Yes.
And he's an opportunistic piece of shit. And we as Americans have made him rich and famous. So we should take a hard look in the mirror for that. I'll just say, like, I guess there are some people out there, I think it's a rational perspective to feel like people who are opportunists aren't inherently bad for that reason. But I personally disagree. That trait bothers me a lot. So
I would say
I'm just
in an artistic endeavor that bothers me so much more when you have no artistic core and no principles when it comes to your artistry. I'll relate this to the band Sugar Ray, who were like kind of like a hardcore band, and then they had, which was the secret track on their album RPM, that song Fly. I just want to fly. Sounded absolutely nothing like anything they'd ever done. Became a massive hit. And everything after that was every morning there's a halo hanging. It's all that same super lame Southern California ooh girl music. And they were just like, oh, that is a hit? Okay, great. We're just going to do that. As compared to a band like Radiohead, who had Creep as a massive hit. And Creep is like kind of a hard rocking. It's got that dead strings that sounds like a airplane starting up.
Yeah.
And what did they put out after that? They put out The Bends.
High and Dry.
Yeah, High and Dry. Fake Plastic Trees. Like, they were like, we want to make good music.
To be clear, though, I don't think the threshold needs to be set as high as Radiohead. I mean, they're a great example of true artists. But at least Sugar Ray did it over the context of a career. We're saying Kid Rock is doing it within the context of one single album. He can't even pick what the hell he wants to do because he's just looking for raw success, however it's going to come.
And that's what I have a hard time squaring, because I did a like modicum of research on Kid Rock just to sort of understand like where he's coming from. And interestingly enough, I came across, and I don't know if you came across this too, Tom, it was some kind of like oral history of Kid Rock's like Detroit sort of, even if he wasn't like from the city itself, but he was kind of connected to that scene. And a lot of like the producers in that area and other artists, as he was coming up, they really did talk about him favorably as a really hard worker. And so that is one aspect that I do think is worth, giving him some credit for, even though his decision making, is sort of questionable. But a lot of the people he came up with have said that he was the kind of guy that like busted his ass, and he was the kind of guy that would roll up to like high schools and sell tapes and, did a lot of his own shit. So, but how do you square that with the shameless opportunism, right? It's hard to.
Sure. You can be both a hardworking shameless opportunist. Like that is actually, I feel, one of the more common combinations of those things. One thing I'll also say, and this is, I guess we'll throw this on the Kid Rock You're All Right fact list, is that apparently Steve O of Jackass fame has said that Kid Rock, he can do more cocaine than anyone else on the planet that he has ever seen, and would apparently show up to parties with a backpack full of cocaine and just do it to a degree that even Steve O, a man who gets his balls hit with staple guns for money, was like, that's unsafe. You shouldn't do that. That's a lot of cocaine.
So he would have fit right in with Black Sabbath and Ozzy.
I did see a quote from Eminem, who maybe we'll talk about him because he makes a cameo on this album, but they were sort of contemporaries in the Detroit scene, that he talks about the one and only time that he's ever done cocaine was when he was recording this track for Kid Rock. And he was like, yeah, I saw what happened and I never touched that shit again.
Yeah. What is it? The description was that there were just Playboy playmates passed out with coke all over their nose, and like it was just a complete like bacchanal mess. And I was like, yeah, I don't know if I want to do this. Which, by the way, also not like Eminem was a teetotaling sober guy. He had a drug problem.
Totally.
But he was just like, I don't want that kind of drug problem. You know what? I'm actually going to correct myself here because I said that Ba With a Ba was the 4th single off of this album. It's actually the 3rd single off of this album. Behind I Am the Bull God as the number 2 single. And the number 1 single off of this album was actually that song Welcome to the Party, parentheses, Ode to the Old School.
Are you kidding?
That was the number 1 single. It shows you he did not have confidence in his new sound. He still thought that the old, hey, my name is Kid Rock and I'm here to say style of rapping was going to save the day.
I know that's not on the list, but I wrote down laziest chorus I've ever heard, ? And my observation there was when it first came on, I didn't realize what the title was. And I was like, well, this sounds like it's stuck in 1985, but kind of the whole record does, so it sort of works. But like the fact that he thinks he's throwing it back when his cadence still sounds like Curtis Blow for the entire record.
Oh, he does not sound anywhere as good as Curtis Blow. Let's just get that out of there. But yes, it is like he stopped paying attention to the evolution of lyrical hip hop in 1984. And basically, well, that's just what I think is great. And it's kind of the equivalent of like somebody these days doing like a grunge album or something like that and being like, I just want to sound like Pearl Jam. That's it, you know? Anyway, we're going to jump on to what was actually the number 4 single and the biggest commercial hit off of this album, the song Cowboy.
Well, I'm packing up my game and I'ma head out west where real women come equipped with scripts and fake press. Find a nest in the hills, chill like Flint. Buy an old drop top, find a spot to pimp. Then I'm a kid, rock it up and down your block. Go with a bottle of scotch and watch lots of crotch. Buy a yacht with a flag saying chillin' the most. Then rock that bitch up and down the coast. Give a toast to the sun, drink with the stars. Get thrown in the mix and tossed out of bars. Sip the Tijuana, I wanna roam. Find Motown, telling fools to come back home. Start an escort service for all the right reasons. And set up shop at the top of 4 Seasons. Kid Rock and I'm the real McCoy. And I'm headed out west, sucker, because I wanna be a cowboy, baby. With a top left back and the sunshine shining. Cowboy, baby. West Coast chillin' with the booze.
All right, look, I'll give it a little bit of credit because at least when this came on, I was like, well, there's some tone differentiation in this material. So I was a little bit happy when it came on. I think it's one of the more palatable tunes. It's still terrible, to be clear. It's lowest common denominator songwriting. I've always used this. I've always held this up in my mind as I've pitched to you guys this idea, light idea of writing a song that fits with every sports franchise around the world under a series of shell bands and just trying the goal being to get it played in a stadium somewhere. I mean, Kid Rock successfully did that, so props to him for that. But it's pure opportunistic drivel, to be clear. And what is with that doorstop sound that he uses way too often? What is that? Like a go-go? What is that?
I don't know. I think it's meant to be what they call like the Jews harp or like the mouth harp. That like old West style sound.
Yeah, it's in like a band song.
I know it from Western movies where they'll always be like the guy sitting by the fire going like, you know.
But no one's playing it, right? It's just like used as a sound effect, isn't it?
Oh, yeah, I'm sure it was all just some random drop that he probably paid like $2 for.
I still remember when this song came out as a single. I think I was living in the dorms at UD at that point, which I'm obviously dating myself here. But I remember somebody down the hall was like, yo, you got to check this out. It's Kid Rock. And I was like, Kid Rock sucks. I don't want to listen to that. And he's like, no. Just listen to this one song. And when it got to the like ragtime piano break, he like paused it and he's like, how do you not like that at this point? And I was just like, what?
That is the best part of the song. Don't get me wrong. But like, I would have taken the sound of a cat being spayed at that point in the song just for a break from what was going on in there. It is, by the way, this is credited as being the birth of country rap.
Good.
So also, fuck you, Kid Rock, for spawning that into the universe.
I kind of get it. I don't know. It's not that. It's the best of the worst, I think.
I do agree with that. I did have a note, and you know, I think it's fair to throw a bone, you know, here and there, but that if you remove the vocals from this entirely, at least the verse backing track is not horrible. It's not like offensive, and with the right treatment could actually be the backbone of an okay song.
Oh, you know what? Actually, my note on this is that this is a very well-produced song. It still sucks, but it is well-produced. It has a build where certain elements come in and then they drop out and they come back in. It's kind of at the end and everything's all in. The backup vocals are really good. If he was just scatting over it, that would be a better song for me, but I just can't hear him say, I ain't straight out of Compton, I'm straight out the trailer, and be like, the house that you grew up in was literally 3 times the house that I grew up in, and I would never say I was from a trailer park, white trash bullshit. Like, come on, man.
Yeah.
You're upper middle class.
At some point in this song, he says he's going to start an escort service for the right reasons. And I would like to understand what the right reasons to start an escort service might be.
Maybe it's so that it's sanctioned and that, the women are, like, viable. I have no idea.
Potentially to save himself money, because at one point I believe he also says that he's going to call Heidi Fleiss, which is exactly what a player that all the ladies want does, is he calls a woman who he has to pay tens of thousands of dollars to have her arrange sex with other women with him. Yeah, so maybe it was just an economic play. He's like, listen, all this coke is running through my finances pretty quickly, and I got to get there. I will also say this. He's a bad rapper. And the fact that he has Eminem on a later song, who's a very good rapper, actually somewhat relates to this line that I'm going to quote here, where he says, "Call me Hoss, I'm the boss with the sauce and the horse." Now, a good rapper would have changed the inflection on horse to say like hoss or something like that. There's a very famous Eminem's given, like, it's like a 60-minute interview with Eminem where he starts rhyming things with orange. And he's like, yeah, if you say orange, then like nothing rhymes with orange. But if you say orange and door hinge, like they can rhyme together. And he's like, it's all about the way that you subtly change the inflection of the words, that you can still tell it's that original word. You subtly change the inflection of both words, and then all of a sudden they rhyme, and people are like, oh, you're a genius. It's like, I just changed each one of them a little bit to make it rhyme, because that's what somebody who actually gives a shit about their craft does. And that's the thing that came through on all this. I will not dispute you, Alan, that Kid Rock is a hard worker, but I don't think he gives a shit about the art. I don't think he gives a shit about the craft.
Yeah. What does he work hard at, I think, is the question. I think he maybe that anecdote is about him working hard at promoting himself. I find that easy.
Sure.
And being loud, introducing himself to people and handing out mixtapes, but he's not doing multiple takes in the studio. This feels dashed off in a lot of ways, in a songwriting way, in a rapping way, in a singing way, in a production way, in most cases.
Oh, yeah, I think he has worked hard to make himself famous, for whatever that's worth. Do I think he has... I think the Eminem comparisons do not do him a service whatsoever, because even though people kind of consider them as like contemporaries, came from the same place, same time, even having Eminem on this album for 45 seconds or a minute, whatever it is, draws such a contrast in the rapping skills that it's tough to even take him seriously anywhere else.
Absolutely. But I'm going to throw a counterpoint out there. Kid Rock was named as the performer for the NHL All-Star Game in 2018. And there was kind of a big backlash against Kid Rock, the performer, being there, because he has a history of being kind of a gigantic dick, and especially being really, really homophobic. But he was defended by none other than Jeremy Roenick, who said, and I quote,
Roenick.
"Kid Rock is the most talented musician I think ever on the planet."
He did not.
Once again, proving that CTE is not just a problem for the professional football; it also appears in hockey. That is a direct quote from Jeremy Roenick. Kid Rock is, I think, is the most talented musician I think ever on the planet.
I think that says a lot about how much cocaine Jeremy Roenick had done with Kid Rock shortly before he gave that quote.
I actually met Jeremy Roenick once on New Year's Eve in Philly, just randomly walking down the street, and I wish I had known that factoid, because I would have definitely brought it up to him.
I mean, was he just like fucking drooling over his untied shoes or something like that?
He was pretty hype. Even just to see like a random person that knew who he was, it seemed a little over the top.
So Phil's coke comment.
Oh yeah, that tracks.
I like where you're going.
That tracks.
Oh my good lord. Any other comment on? Again, I cannot describe to you how, I guess somebody had to do it, but just the fact that this is what got rap country into the world, like, fuck you, Kid Rock. Rap country is the lowest common denominator of it's bad country and bad rap put together. It's rap for people who are afraid of black people. That's basically what it comes down to. And I hate him enough for this.
The only thing I'll add is if you've ever seen the video, I might need to watch it again. Did anyone watch this video? I'm almost positive that Gary Coleman fights another short person in this video. It is just random.
Is it Josie?
Oh, is that somebody associated with Kid Rock? That's very possible.
Yeah, sadly it is. That's the kid rapping on the next song.
Oh, God. Good Lord.
Yeah, that would be the case. It's bad.
Now, all right, we're going to move on to the next song on our focus list here. And I guess I have to state that this is the version of I Am the Bull God that is the, the fourth track on Devil Without a Cause. Not the I Am the Bull God remix that appears later on this, or the other version of I Am the Bull God that he recorded and released on yet another EP beforehand.
I like how this is like, the whole record is like a greatest hits album of him, right?
How? Like, okay. Listeners, we're going to play this song for a second and think in your head, this needed to be out. Come on.
I've obviously heard the song before because I think this was one of his singles back in the day, and this was in my sphere as like a Y100 listener and all of those things.
This was the second single off of this album.
When I was re-listening to it this week, I put a note that around the 3-minute 20-second point, I was like, this is the right time to end the song. Because there's like a very natural sort of wind down, and then it starts again. As I was writing that, though, I was like, no, actually, 2 seconds in would have been the perfect time to end this song.
Make it the silence between two tracks instead.
Yes. Oh, God, I had to listen to that
I wrote
more.
down, am I the only one where the spelling section goes on too long for me and I lose what the hell he's even trying to spell?
Oh, yeah. The
DOT
POD to the GOD? What is that? What is the POD? What is that?
Pod, man. Can't you spell? No.
This caused me to write down that maybe it was one of these experimental albums where he was given the constraint, you can record an hour-long record, Kid Rock, but we're only budgeted for you to sing a total of 4 notes throughout the sessions.
Oh, by the way, 71 minutes long. That's how long this album is.
Yeah.
It really needed to be 71 minutes long.
The Wall's 81 minutes long, so sounds.
Well, tomato, Phil.
Good touch. Yeah, sure.
I like how there's that bitchin' guitar solo at the very beginning. What it sounds like if you just gave me a guitar and were like, hey, you don't actually, you know what a guitar is, but you don't know really how to play the guitar. Certainly not to solo, but I want you to do a solo on an album. That would be what I would come with on maybe take 3. That's got to be Kid Rock on guitar because he's credited as having a guitar credit on, I think, this particular song.
Are we talking about Cowboy, Bull God? Where are we at?
We're talking about Bull God.
Good.
There's like
I'm glad.
right at the beginning of the song, there's like a.
Such garbage.
It's like 2 bends and a couple of hammer-ons. It's totally shit. But it's right at the beginning of the song. It's just, yeah. Again, how did anybody listen to that and be like, we got guys here that like play the guitar. We can just get one of them to do it if you want. Probably get something good. I had this down as this is the epitome of the way that nu metal evolved to become all bravado and no substance.
There were times where I was like, I don't even know what song I'm listening to anymore because his cadence, his delivery, the BPM of the song, it sounds identical. There's literally no difference.
Well, I think very much he was just like, I have this one shitty rap flow, and I'm just going to try a bunch of different types of music underneath it to see if one of these is going to hit. And, goddamn if it didn't hit. I hate it for that. But this sold a lot and became obscenely popular. And I'm going to throw in a Kid Rock, you're all right fact, I guess number 3 here, is that he became this icon for this working class type of individual, and he actually he did a couple of cool things around that. He's done a lot of USO shows, very popular with, young Army recruits. And so good on him. That's cool.
You actually felt guilty about how much you disliked this. And you had to go looking for decent things to say about Kid Rock.
A little bit. I wanted it to be a little bit. So here's one of the other things that I actually found to be pretty fucking cool. This is after he was already very rich and already very famous. This is 2013. He did a tour, I think it was called the Best Night Ever Tour, where all of the tickets were no more than $20 and all of the beers were no more than $3 at his shows. And objectively, that's cool. Like, that's objectively cool.
These aren't like
good for you.
dry hopped IPAs or anything. $3, this is swag beer.
It doesn't matter though. Like you're talking. You go to a concert, it's $12 Miller Lights. Like the fact that it's $20 tickets and $3 beers, that's cool. I will give him that. That is cool. I am also going to throw in another Kid Rock Go Fuck Yourself fact, which is that he actually has a cameo on the Insane Clown Posse's first album, Carnival of Carnage. And apparently the story goes that not only did he find out that another local rapper that he thought that he was better than got a $500 appearance fee, so he demanded a $600 appearance fee because he had to make more than this other guy, but he showed up so fucked up he couldn't record his verse and had to come back later to record it again because he was just so fucked up. And as much as I hate Insane Clown Posse, I hate their music. I don't necessarily hate them as a band, but I believe it was Violent J was like, I fucking hate Kid Rock. This guy sucks, but it's going to be good for our album to get him on there. So like, I'll bite my tongue and I'll let him on my album because he's a fucking huge famous guy, but fuck him. He's a piece of shit.
Casting ICP as consummate professionals.
Is Kid Rock that bad that we can actually look at them with some sort of like
Kid Rock
empathy?
has reduced us to.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Let's say the $3 beer thing. You probably figured out scientifically that if you have 7 more beers, you're gonna enjoy his music quite a bit.
Yeah, because Kid Rock applies science to things.
I think you're onto something with that. I think that's.
I don't know, man. It definitely took some science to mash up Werewolves of London,
Sweet Home Alabama.
with Sweet Home Alabama. I swear that's the Smells Like Teen Spirit drum riff.
Fun with stems.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Let's move on to what I think, Alan, you had stated was the thesis for this entire album and probably our entire week's endeavor, the song Wasting Time.
And rolling a Fleetwood, that's how I mac. I rock all the tracks, so the world knows I love all the girls, smack all the hoes, show love to those who come real with it. Life's a bitch, but I deal with it. I'm in it to win it like guys and men. Could drink about 15 Heinekens. I'm not born again, but if I was, I'd ask to come back with a little more love. Puffing the Winston, drinking the 4-0. Kid Rock, and I'ma let you know. I've been sitting here just wasting time, drinking, smoking, thinking, trying to free my mind. I've been sitting here just wasting time, drinking, smoking, trying to free my mind. It's been a couple of months in this.
Yeah, I feel like between this and the song Fuck Off, brilliant titles, just super, just accurate, like.
That's about summed it up.
Yeah. I picked those specifically for that reason. I was like, this sums up my entire thoughts on this album.
Here, the only thing I'll say about the song Wasting Time, and I saw somewhere that this was sort of repurposed from a Fleetwood Mac song. I tried to listen to them both. I still didn't quite pick it up. But
secondhand news, man.
Yeah, but even when I know the song, but I wasn't catching the wholesale like grift. Like maybe there was some samplage or something, but
Well, now that Tom said it, yeah, it's secondhand news.
Bow, bow, bow,
Yeah.
bow, 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 bow.
It's like,
Most interesting
it's like
part
the
of the
first
song, by
on
the way.
Rumors, or like the first
Yeah.
song on the second side of Rumors.
It's the first track on Rumors, yeah.
the thing, so it's actually not a horrendous like backing track. The thing when he opens a song with "I am a pimp," What are you doing? Like, it's not. I don't know what else to say. I am a pimp is the first 4 words of the song.
This felt like one of the more egregious ones, where it was just like, take everything our target demo might like and throw it in a blender without a lot of effort and just paste it up on the wall and see what happens.
I have one note on this song, and this is summer barbecue music for idiots. And I feel like that is, I mean, I could just picture a bunch of just the dumbest motherfuckers in the world listening to this over a summer barbecue and being like, yeah,
smoking, drinking,
just wasted time, yeah.
I hate this so
exhausting
much.
myself talking about this fucking music, man. Like,
he talks about Winston cigarettes like 4 times in this song.
Yeah, that's his big line leading up into the chorus is like smoking a Winston and drinking a 4-0, and you're like, okay, like why? Why are you pretending that you're poor? Stop it! You're not poor. Oh God.
I don't know. Winston's are probably $10 a pack at this point, so
yeah, not 1998.
Fair.
So this is part of the poverty cosplay that he's been doing this entire album, right? Is that this whole I'm a redneck thing. So Kid Rock, fuck off fact, he played in front of a Confederate flag between 2000 and 2006. A man from Michigan who has no connection to the Confederacy whatsoever played in front of a Confederate flag. So either that was a sop to the morons that liked him because he's like, I'm a Southern rock, yeah, or he's racist, and I don't know which one is worse.
Nothing would surprise me about Kid Rock. Everything about him is terrible.
Well, to Rob's point earlier, and maybe this was before we started, but Rob made the point of it's what you do. Like, it doesn't matter what your intentions are. It doesn't matter if it's a shtick. If you fucking drape he actually wears the Confederate flag too as some kind of like robe. I don't know if he still does it. If you do that shit, you're a shithead, and it doesn't matter if you're doing it for monetary purposes or to look cool or whatever. If you wear a Confederate flag around your body, you're a fucking asshole.
He can't even say heritage. He can't even be like, oh, this is like, well, you know, like this is from my people. You were born in Michigan. It almost does not get more northern
you're
than
touching
Michigan.
Canada.
You're touching Canada. Oh, what an asshole.
Which, I mean, I've brought this up before. He's closer to Canada. So much good work comes out of Canada. This really should be better, right? Like, there's real talent right there.
Well, even Motown was in Detroit. I mean, come on. This is a hotbed of music here.
Mississauga.
But not this. This is not music. I can't go so far as to say that this is like a well-constructed song. This is one of those songs that was written in a lab. It's like you said, it's like Call Me Maybe.
Except much worse.
It's much worse. Much worse. But it's more like, it's
that
what's
takes the
gonna
heat
get
off me
played
putting
at
this
a
on the Guilty
TGI
Pleasures
Fridays
album.
on a Saturday. You know, like.
No, that's a good song. I think we all agreed on that one now.
He's such a terrible rapper. He's really, really bad. I can't get over how bad of a rapper he is. And if I listen to your rap album and I am a better rapper than you, you are a shitty rapper. Because I am not a good rapper, but I am confident that I am a better rapper than Kid Rock is. He's
Kid Rock and he's a Capricorn, man. Like, these are the things you're gonna learn about him.
Let's do it. Let's move on. The final track. Fuck.
Okay, look, at least this sort of sounds like a rock song. The Eminem verse is, I hesitate to say a breath of fresh air, but it did throw into sharp relief how terrible the rapping had been up to that point.
Yeah, it's not Eminem's best work, but it's the work of a professional rapper who is, at the top of his craft.
It sounded more like, well, we already mentioned License to Ill, but like a lot of the album, I think this in particular, it sounded like a watered down rehash of License to Ill, which came 12 years before it. So that material is ultimately better and more rocking. But in the context of this record, it felt pretty all right.
I actually had a note that this sounded like a long, bad version of the song Gratitude by the Beastie Boys, which obviously came out a few years after, but it's, sounds like it's sung through a megaphone or something. It sounded like a really bad version.
I actually heard Sure Shot on the radio today, and it's much better than this song.
Yeah, that's pretty obvious. I can't believe we've given this much of our life to Kid
Yeah,
Rock.
I'm going to be happy when this is over.
Well, listen, I want to.
We're very close.
I want to talk about something that I find to be particularly egregious with Kid Rock, and it is epitomized by, I think, my least favorite line on this album, and maybe my least favorite line on any album that we have touched on so far.
My least favorite line on any album.
The line is, "I'm not Peter Pan. I don't fuck with fairies, but I bust more rhymes than virgin cherries." That's the most tasteless line I've ever heard. And honestly, Kid Rock, go fuck yourself. What the hell is wrong with you? This is a man who, and again, dear listener, I am saying this to illustrate a point, has gotten in trouble for using the word faggot on stage multiple times as recently as 2021. He is saying this like this is an acceptable thing to say out there. And then he does the same bullshit of like, oh, what are you, offended, snowflake? Oh, yeah, I'm just an American badass. Yeah. Oh, well, I'm not your cancel culture. Honestly, I hope you get dick cancer, you fucking asshole.
He's human garbage, clearly. And his rise in the 90s presaged everything that is, putting a complete moron asshole in the White House too, obviously, right? And I wish we could turn back time and all kill ourselves. But we can't.
Well, why we have to kill ourselves? There's only, we can do some fraction reduction here.
I also would like to point out that Kid Rock now starts his live shows start with a message from Donald Trump to the crowd about how great Kid Rock is and how happy they should be that I think he calls him Rob it's like Rob is such a great musician, such a God,
tremendous musician is how
tremendous. Oh, I'm sure.
Tremendous, yeah.
Quite possibly the best musician ever, I think, on planet Earth.
Oh, God.
Oh, yeah.
This music made me dumber. They talk about classical music making babies smarter. This has to have at least the same effect as a 24-pack of Keystone Light or similar.
Oh, you're not going to a 30-pack of Strohs, which he actually name drops at one point. It's a 30-pack of Strohs.
This did sort of drain my energy. And honestly, I listened to that other record too, which was a totally different type of early 90s, pop, trash, hip hop. God, it's been draining. And it's he has this delivery that's so lethargic, but not in a cool way,
Yeah, not Q-Tip style, laid back way.
It's not behind the beat.
Angry.
He's just
He's just off time and angry. But thankfully, we do get 2 full minutes of voicemails at the end of this song, because that's what I needed, is 2 minutes of Kid Rock's voicemails. Fucking asshole.
Although hearing his mom yelling at him is somewhat cathartic.
Yeah, if it wasn't an actress. Sure. The one thing that I will say is somewhat cathartic. If you've looked at any pictures of modern-day Kid Rock, I saw it described on the internet, and I think that this is absolutely perfect, is that... Kid Rock nowadays looks like Dr. Phil dressed up as Kid Rock for Halloween. Just do yourself a favor and look up a modern picture of Kid Rock. He does look like Dr. Phil dressed up as Kid Rock.
That reminds me of one of my favorite Onion headlines, which is Kenny Chesney, a poor man's Kenny Chesney. And it makes me think Kid Rock might be a poor man's Kid Rock.
Yeah. A secretly wealthy but pretending to be poor man's Kid Rock. Oh, God. We're going to touch on just some absolute terribleness of Kid Rock that is modern-day Kid Rock. Have you guys listened to his recent song? I think it's called We the People, which is basically the chorus is literally just let's go, Brandon. And he's basically saying
I haven't listened to this song, but I'll hate listen to it right now for the first time.
Listen to it. It is so in line with his fall into the Republican orthodoxy that the pandemic is fake and fuck Fauci and all you snowflakes and sheep out there wearing masks.
There's good drums. They're there's a nice, he's in a real studio with a real drummer.
I mean, I would hope so. He's worth $60 million or something like that if you can't get a good band.
How much money do you need? When do you just wake up and you're like, okay, I'm good. I can drop the fucking charade here.
Yeah. Well,
ooh, he just said fuck Fauci.
Yeah, he says fuck Fauci in there. Of course. You know, he had his restaurant in Nashville famously, like, had his liquor license temporarily suspended because he refused to shut down during the pandemic and would hold very large get-togethers of unmasked people because, of course, he did, because he's a fucking terrible person. All right, so that is our thoughts on Kid Rock's Devil Without a Cause. The only thing left, dear listeners, I know you are as excited as I am, to hear what our final views are and whether or not this makes the list. I think we might get one or two surprise yeses, but I am going to throw it over first to Alan. Alan, what is your final vote?
Well, whatever surprise yeses you're looking for are not going to come from this corner of the world. I don't have much to say more than what I said earlier. You do not need to listen to this album. If you've even listened to us this far, you probably already don't like Kid Rock, and so I think you're safe. So it's going to be a rather hard no on my part.
All right, Phil, what are your thoughts?
Do not listen to this record. Do not listen to Kid Rock's Devil Without a Cause or Grit Sandwich for breakfast. This is very bad.
Should have a Surgeon General's warning on the...
Yeah, it's a no for me, but I was gonna go a step farther and say you should really go out of your way to avoid this record. Please do yourself that favor. I wanted to relate it to our Amy Winehouse podcast, where I think I ultimately ruled no because I said it was a product. But in comparison, it was a slick product with an eye towards craft, imagination, talented musicians at every turn. This is a product also, but it is bereft of all those other good points. I described it as potato salad at a deli counter. It's a product in that way, and that it was slapped together by drug-addled nincompoops to serve people who aren't discerning at all about what goes in their bodies. And by the time the weeks-old mayonnaise infects your system, you're already pot committed, and if you turned it into your identity somehow. So please avoid this at all costs. Please.
Well, I guess we're going to go 4 for 4 on this one. I am also a hard no. Apparently 14 million morons can be wrong. You should not listen to this album. This was terrible, and it wasn't even terrible enough to be interesting. There are some albums that are terrible and interesting. This is terrible and uninteresting. It is terrible because it is uninteresting, and also because it is terrible and not well constructed, and the entire thing sucks. And I'm sorry, listeners. I'm sorry that we subjected you to this. But here's to hoping that next week is going to be slightly better in terms of your listening experience. Everybody ready for their homework assignment?
Oh my God, yes.
I've got the Albinator here.
Yeah.
Yes, seriously, ready to move on. But again, this is one of those ones I just couldn't listen to with my family. I was like, I can't subject you to this. I have to listen to this by myself in headphones. And for some reason, the fact that it was directly in my ear holes made it even more offensive and worse. But let's find out what we're going to listen to next week. Without any further ado, drum roll, please. We will be listening to
Grit Sandwiches for breakfast.
Grit Sandwiches? No. It is Let Love Rule by Lenny Kravitz. That sounds way more promising.
Sure. Take it.
I think I'm going to guess it's the same era, right?
Probably around. Yeah, it's probably like
97, maybe.
Yeah, I'd have guessed a little earlier, but it doesn't matter.
Oh, Let Love Rule is 89.
Whoa.
Well, I would have guessed like 94 or 96, so I do find that a little surprising.
Yeah, I was way off.
Yeah.
Is that the one that has It Ain't Over Till It's Over on it?
It does not. I'm actually looking at...
Because that, to me, feels like the most like late 80s.
Yeah. Oh, apparently Lisa Bonet wrote some lyrics on this album. This has Let Love Rule, I Built This Garden for Us, Mr. Cab Driver, My Precious Love. I don't recognize any of these songs, but I'm still way more excited than Kid Rock.
Oh, of course.
So, did you like what we had to say? Are you a Kid Rock stan that is gonna write us some I'm sure profanity-laced invective over the internet? You can do that at 1001albumcomplaints@gmail.com, 1001albumcomplaints@gmail.com. Let us know how we did. Let us know how your week went. Always love to hear from our, I'm going to say fans, but I guess maybe we'll just say listeners. If you like what we're doing, give us a rating, tell a friend, we always want to get the word out that there are some albums out there that really suck, and we have some complaints about them. There's some albums out there that are really great, and we also have complaints about them. We're an equal opportunity bitching enterprise here. But until next week, I have been Tom.
I'm Alan.
I am Phil.
And I'm Rob.
Devil without a boosh.